Fellas, an amazing topic we have today. I've consulted friends, I've thought about it a lot. It's time to just put this out here. Here's a list of things I bet I could throw so far, okay? And I capitalized so because I want to emphasize that I could throw it so far. I wrote it out without the so being capitalized, and it was like things I bet I could throw so far, as if I'd already thrown some of them. I have thrown most of these things, and if I haven't thrown them, I'm really looking for opportunities to throw these things. So let's get into it. Number one, crabapple. I mean, this is an essential experience. If you've grown up in a place that doesn't have crab apples, indigenously, I don't even know if that's the right way to say that. If you just didn't have crab apples happening, crab apple trees happening in your vicinity, you missed out on one of the premier throwable items of anybody's childhood. You would be zipping these bad boys at your friends. And if you hit them really hard, everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you bullseyed somebody, they would smush. So it was almost like a little paintball. It was nature's paintball. This thing would be a bullet. You'd be throwing it at them. And they would fall off of the trees too, so they were on the ground. So it was almost like, you stepped outdoors and you saw your worst enemy, aka one of your best friends, and you saw crab apples on the ground. Game on. You might have already had some in your pocket from when you walked into that place, ready for an opportunity when you walked back out. So crab apples, this isn't a ranking list, but if it was, I probably wouldn't move them from the very first slide. This is sort of just the first thing I thought of because, again, premier growing up experience throwing crab apples, foundational even. I developed a lot of my accuracy as a thrower of things by throwing crab apples. I would even say it's the idea. Okay, we got to move on. I could talk about this for a whole video apparently. Number two on this, Rolex. Apparently it's a ranking list. It's not a ranking list. Rolex. This could be just any expensive watch. I think the more expensive, the better because it's heavier. It fits in your hand heavier, right? And it's got that circular dial to the body, to the chassis of the watch, if you want to call it that. And that's really where you want to grip it. You want to grip it there, let the band kind of fall around your hand, and you could just smash somebody's windshield with this thing. Again, Rolex is sort of the standard because we just want it to be expensive. The more expensive, the heavier the materials tend to be, right? And there's that ratio of size to weight. You want it to be small but heavy within a certain ratio, right? If it's too big and too heavy, it's not aerodynamic. You can't get the right leverage. If it's too small and too light, again, you really can't put the proper force behind it. You can use some wrist snap, but this is a good example of it's small. Watches generally don't get a lot bigger when they're at a certain size, but they do get heavier when they're nicer. You spend more money on a nicer watch, and it feels good to throw those babies. Yo-yo. And I had to include this sick picture of this grandpa getting it with the yo-yo. It almost looks like it's leaving his finger. It looks like he's yo-yoing so hard. He's flicking that bad boy so hard it's about to break free from his hand. And that's a perfect example of the velocity you can get on a yo-yo. And the yo-yo almost has like a tracer bullet where you can see the trail of the bullet flying. That's the string coming out of the yo-yo. You can throw these bad boys. It's almost more fun to throw somebody's yo-yo than it is to do a yo-yo trick, especially for somebody like me who really wanted to be a yo-yo-er and struggled. I remember going to a yo-yo camp as a kid, and I couldn't do the even most basic foundational of yo-yo tricks. But you know what I could do is throw that baby so far. I threw that baby so far that I couldn't find it, and my dad was pissed because he had just bought it. Somebody's wallet. I said somebody's wallet because if you throw your own wallet, even though it is theoretically the same size, the same shape, mechanically the same concept of throwing that thing is there, deep down in your heart, you will be, I believe, inhibited. You will not be able to access 100% of your throwing potential because you're thinking to yourself, this is my wallet that I'm throwing. If it's somebody else's wallet, let that baby rip. Let it fly. Nothing's holding you back. Ideal. Thick pack of gum. So some gum is too small, and we're going back to this concept of it needs to be the right size to weight ratio. And it could also be maybe not the shape that you want. But if you get a thick pack of gum, especially one that's maybe got some plastic or it's just, I don't know, it's got a lot of pieces of gum, you can really throw it. And this is an opportunity here to experiment with different throwing styles. You're maybe not going to throw a thick pack of gum overhand. You certainly could. And if you threw it overhand and it hit a flat surface, it would make the funniest sound. It would whoosha. That's, you can quote me on that. But this is where you could experiment with maybe like throwing it like a disc or throwing it like you'd skip a rock, and that thing will fly, right? It'll get some levitational forces propelling it through the air. Pills, prescription medicine, don't tell me that I can't throw this baby so far. And it'll make the craziest sound as you throw it. It's going to be like a maraco. A maraco? A shaker. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's going to be a musical instrument as you're gripping it and ripping it. I could throw that baby so far. And the heavier it is means there's more pills, which means when I throw it, whoever's medicine it belonged to is going to be so mad that I threw it, in which case I'm throwing it even harder. They're fueling me. So prescription medication, pills, whatever you want to call it, that thing's gone. I'm throwing it over a mountain. King size. And I just said king size because it could be any of these Johns. That's what they say. It could be any of these Johns. It could be the Hershey's bar, the Kit Kat. I'm for sure throwing the Almond Joy out the window. I'm throwing that out of a moving car. Get that Almond Joy out of here. Who buys those? Whoever buys them apparently has a demand enough that they would make a king size. They would make a size above their normal market-tested size that's supposed to go head-to-head with these other products. So, oh my gosh, they need a bigger Almond Joy. I'm throwing that thing so far. The Hugs beverage, and this isn't even really what its name is. When I was Googling it, I couldn't find what I was looking for until I realized its real name is a Little Hugs fruit barrel drink or fruit barrel beverage, something like that, something ridiculous. These are great to throw. They are maybe a little bit larger than what the ideal size for throwing something is, but because they're filled with a liquid and it's plastic, they're a little bit lighter, right? So the ratio of ideal weight to ideal size, you still stay within that ratio even though it's a little bit bigger than what say the dream throwable object might be. And I don't have empirical evidence or data to support this, but I am very sure that I could throw the blue one the farthest. That color just seems the most throwable. Don't get me wrong, the red one or the yellow, I'm throwing it out of my vision sight. I won't be able to see how far I throw that thing. The blue one I'm throwing into a different zip code. It's as simple as that. Inhaler, this one's great, and it's a little bit different because it's the only thing I think so far that we've talked about on this list that is hollow containing a gaseous substance, right? We've talked about liquid containing substances and substance containing substances. So this is a substance that contains a gaseous substance. It's a lot of times that I've said substance in the last 10 seconds, but it's filled with like albuterol or some sort of prescription medication. So you're throwing a cylindrical device that has at least some metal components, but it's filled with gas. So it's a little bit larger, it's a little bit heavier, but it's got that buoyancy factor with the prescription gaseous medication that's meant to be inhaled, but instead is being thrown. So this one, I think you could actually throw it farther than you think you could. It's a little bit bigger. You think it would be heavier, you pick it up, but then, oh, it's so light. It's so light I barely even realized it was in this person's purse. And then you just toss that baby so far. They're never getting it. Hopefully it's not an emergency. I think we've all thrown an Apple TV remote, possibly out the window, possibly away from your friend, just thrown it. And these babies, we're going back a little bit to the pack of gum where you can get some different techniques. You can kind of get that tomahawk technique. You could throw it, disc-wise or like you're skipping a rock, right? And these guys are a little heavier than they look. So you can get some good power behind that and throw that thing out the window, throw it into a body of water, throw it into, I don't know, but you could throw that thing and it's gone. These are very, I would say, one of the more premier satisfying things to throw that are on this list. The Beyblade, I thought about putting this one with the yo-yo, but they truly are different, right? The yo-yo's got the string, the Beyblade's got the plastic, I don't know, it almost feels like a zip tie that you're, like the ripcord, I guess, that you're pulling. The yo-yo, you throw and it comes back to you. The Beyblade, you're launching it onto a designated surface, usually some sort of like dome, arena thing. The yo-yo is really just a one-person enjoyment thing unless you're trying to show off, for a potential spouse. The Beyblade is battle. It's combat, I will say something that's interesting about the Beyblade is if you're going to throw it, you got to pick the way you're going to hold it. It's got these pointy edges. It's been a long time since I've looked at Beyblades. They look a lot different than I remember them. They look kind of freaky. This image is a little low res. I tried to blow it up to look at the details. And the details are just obscured by the pixelations of the internet. It's almost like they don't want me to know. Nonetheless, I have thrown Beyblades. I have memories of throwing Beyblades, and those babies flew just as good as anything else. So definitely deserve to be on this list. Uncrustable, and gosh, does it feel good to throw an Uncrustable. I don't know if it's the sound of the crinkling paper as you grab it, or if it's that it's got that slight disc shape, or just the like slap that it makes when it hits something. But Uncrustables, not only can you throw them so far, but they feel so good to throw. Even if it's your Uncrustable, bye, that thing's gone. Yeah, I was hungry, but I want to throw this. Easy. This was one of the easiest ones to put on my list for sure. The last submission for this list that I've put together was the Mini Coke Zero. And for some reason, it was hard to find a picture of a Mini Coke Zero. Millions of pictures of Coke Zero. I'm talking about the small ones. And I believe that's what's in this picture right here. 7.5 ounces, that sounds about right. What's a regular size? 12 ounces, 16 ounces, something like that. We want to think about the Mini Coke Zero. The Mini Coke Zero is significantly smaller. It's closer to that ideal ratio of the right weight, but the right size. Full Coke Zero might be, you could throw that thing pretty far, but we're talking about it's a full palm's worth. It kind of sloshes around. The Mini Coke Zero is small enough that you maybe don't get all of your fingers around it, and boy, does that thing fly through the air. I've thrown a Mini Coke Zero this week. Within the last 7 days, I threw one of these. I know I can throw it so far because I couldn't find it afterward. That thing was gone. These are in the same category or the tier as the crab apple, as things that are A, amazing to throw, B, easily accessible, and C, fly through the air like they were meant to be thrown and not consumed, right? Who's eating crab apples? They're throwing them. Who's drinking Mini Coke Zeros? Probably a lot of people. Who's throwing Mini Coke Zeros? Everybody should be throwing Mini Coke Zeros. That's all I got for you today.